Story 1. Important to the story. I took some time off to work on a novel I've been writing. It seemed like the right time to do so with the pandemic happening and me having no immune system. I worked for a towing company. Everything is appointment-based where I worked because of the pandemic. Makes sense, right? Apparently not. I've been off work for about 4 months now. I help with paperwork here and there, but that's sent to me via email, so I don't have to leave my house. It's a good system. I finally had to leave my house. I realized that I forgot one of my flash drives at the office. It's the one I would add random notes to, like, oh, I could end this character, or throw in this unexpected twist and surprise everyone type of thing for the story I've been writing for some time. I stopped at the office today to pick up my flash drive. It's hidden, so I wasn't about to call and be like, hey, can you go into the storage room, move the first aid kit, pull out the box of envelopes, reach in and grab my flash drive? So I did it myself. I walked in, put in my codes to get to the back, and went about my business. My boss knew I was coming in to get something, saw me, said, hey, hope you're doing well, and went back to work. Just as I stepped out of the storage room with my flash drive in hand, I heard it. The screech of an entitled individual. She was losing her mind because both the people who could help her were taking calls and couldn't just step off the phone to help this person. She also hadn't booked an appointment because the appointment sheet is on the door as you head into the back part of the office. I proceeded to take the side exit and disappear. Or so I thought. I made it through the shop where all the trucks are parked and left through a different door. This lady saw me leave through the side door, bolted outside, and literally ran to the door I left through screaming that I need to help her. I just looked at her frantic self and said no. I continued walking to my car with her following me, screaming and screaming. I should also mention that there are some puddles in the yard because winter came and left in the span of a few days, and it hadn't all dried up yet. She stepped in a mud puddle and fell over, screaming louder than before. I turned to see if she was okay, and she had alerted a few of the drivers with her banshee scream, who also came to check on her. When the drivers were coming to help, she started screaming about how I pushed her and assaulted her. One of the drivers went and got the boss. He came out, asked what had happened, and she stuck to her story about how I had assaulted her and I need to be fired. My boss looked her dead in the eye and said, she doesn't work here, and you don't get to dictate who gets fired here. Sorry. She wanted the police called immediately. My boss asked if she was sure. She screamed bloody murder, repeating the word yes. He asked again if she was sure while gesturing to the 4 cameras in the yard. She literally turned white, got up, went to her car, and left. My boss burst out laughing the second she peeled out of the yard. He also told me to have a good rest of my day and to call if I needed anything. Story 2. As the title says, I am not an Uber or Lyft driver. There is no indication anywhere on my vehicle that I would be. I don't really put stickers on my truck anyway, so it's not like there is any confusion on this. I drive a 2014 Silverado, and I take care of it and keep the inside looking nice. From some of the horror stories I've heard, I don't want to let strangers in my truck. Nothing against Uber or Lyft drivers, just not doing it in a vehicle I worked very hard to be able to buy. Anyhow, yesterday I drove my wife to Ulta so she could shop for beauty products. I really had no interest in going in, so I parked and played on my phone for a bit. After about 15 minutes, the passenger door opens and some stranger gets in. This woman looked like she walked straight out of a meme about entitled individuals and hopped into my truck. Random lady. No wonder I was waiting so long. You're over here jerking around. Me. Ooh. I think you're in the wrong vehicle. I don't know you. Why are you in my truck? I need to go to address. It's down by the amphitheater. I'm not a cab. You're the Uber driver I called for. You have the sticker. I look around. I totally have friends that would put something on my truck as a joke, but I wasn't seeing it. Ma'am, you must be seeing things. There is no sticker on my truck. I'm not an Uber driver. Random lady pulls out her phone and, with a tone of such superiority that I immediately wanted to just push her out the door, says, my app says that the driver will be in a blue Ford Focus, and that's you. I laughed out loud. What is so funny? I'll tell you what, I'll give you a free ride to the eye doctor to get you some glasses. You said your driver was in a blue Ford Focus, a small car, and you confused it with a dark gray Chevy Silverado, a pickup truck. In no possible trick of the light could those two ever get mixed up. You obviously need glasses, Mrs. Magoo. I'm sure everyone is about to be shocked by her next line. I've read enough internet stories, and even written one or two. I should have seen this coming. How dare you? I'm not your driver. I don't drive for Uber. There is no sticker. You got into the completely wrong vehicle. The only thing that I can see as a reason is that either your eyesight is terrible, or you are starting to come down with Alzheimer's or dementia, which would be tragic, but I don't think is the case. I was watching the entitled rage build up in her face. I was expecting the explosion, but she switched tactics on me. I thought she was gonna zig, but she zagged. Well, I still need a ride and you aren't doing anything, so why don't you just take me there? I can give you $5. She said this like she was trying to bribe a little kid with a piece of candy. I might have been willing to give her a ride. I'm a nice guy to most people and generally am willing to help people out. However, her condescending tone got under my skin, and I'm not going to reward that kind of behavior. No, and you need to get out. My wife is here. She had just shown up. This lady had the audacity to roll down the window and tell my wife, "You can wait, I need a ride." It was at that moment too that I just happened to see a blue Ford Focus driving really slow in front of the stores and the driver looking around. Obviously her ride. I started speaking slowly while keeping an eye on the driver. "Ma'am, listen," pause for dramatic effect. "I am not driving you anywhere. I'm taking my wife home, and she definitely doesn't have to wait for you. You need to get out of my truck before I call the police. If you are waiting for your ride, you need to settle that with Uber. By the way, the Uber driver you were waiting for is leaving the parking lot right now." I pointed to the blue car that was moving to the lot's exit back onto the road. She flung my door open and tried to go chasing after him. It was pretty comical, really. My wife gets in and says, "You have a strange taste in friends." Another 5 minutes, I think I could have gotten a free high five. We drove past her on the way out. She didn't look happy. Story 3. Hey, Internet! This is my very first post here, so if I do something wrong, please don't judge. This took place in China a few years ago. Please keep in mind that I am not the best in Mandarin, so I will try my best to translate everything. My dad owns a restaurant, and whenever I go back to China, I like to help out there. I did not work there, nor do I look like I worked there. Side note, the restaurant includes places to drink tea, which is very common in China, and a bakery. I was at the restaurant one day minding my own business and greeting all the staff. Mind you that I was around 12, although my friends say I look older than that. The waiters and waitresses were all in their 20s and wore a uniform with the restaurant's logo. As a 12-year-old, this event was traumatizing, and I remember most of the details because this event is inked into my brain. I was walking to the bakery when an entitled woman stood up and stopped me. "We are going to call her Karen from now on. I want my drinks half off," in a snobby tone. "Okay? Aren't you going to do anything about this?" "No." She gets extremely frustrated, saying, "Aren't you going to do something? I know the owner, and I can get you fired in a quick second. You are an entitled waiter, just walking around like you own this place. Who do you think you are, you filthy peasant?" Me with tears in my eyes. "I don't work." Luckily my dad heard the shouting and came down. "Dad, what's going on here? Who are you?" Mind you that my dad is very humble and only likes to wear plain t-shirts and old jeans. "Dad, what did you say to my daughter?" "Why do you care? It's not like this bothers you. You guys are just servants while I know the owner. He can fire you in a heartbeat. I am the owner, and if you look down at people like that, it shows that you are not a good person. Pay and get out of my restaurant." Karen whimpers and nods. Her friend stood up and went inside to pay, and they all left, glaring at Karen. Later my dad told me that she was just an office worker who worked for my dad's friend's company that explains the fake designer bag, and she was fired immediately. Her friends are co-workers, still come here often and never ask for discounts. Again, sorry for any mistakes. I am trying to keep this vague for privacy reasons. Story 4. A recent comment reminded me of the horrible theme diner I worked at in high school. About a week after I'd left town for college, one of the servers called in sick. The manager on duty forgot I had quit and left town by over 1,000 miles. Since this was before cell phones, she called my home number, got my mother, and demanded that I come in to work the shift. My mother tried to explain that she did not work there, was not me, and I was long gone. This difficult manager was having none of that excuse. She refused to believe my mother was not me and got very threatening about how she needed to come in, or she'd get fired from a job I had already quit. Also, I'd never work in that town again, yippee. My mother hung up on her, but the difficult manager called back repeatedly until my mother finally agreed to come in just to make the phone stop ringing as she was expecting an important call. A few hours later, the manager called back to berate her and fire her for not appearing for her shift. She never did figure out she'd been talking to my mother the entire time. Story 5. First, my son is 12. He is about 5'10" inches and 190 pounds. He is taller than me, so pre-quarantine, we went to Target. Not planning on being there long, my son is in a red shirt. He is old enough and heavy enough that kidnapping is not likely, so we let him go a few aisles over to the video games. Give it 5-10 minutes. A woman we will call Karen, because why not? Karen, you are not very helpful. Son, I'm sorry. Well, help me. I don't know how. About here I turn the corner and can see. Yes, he has a baby face but could pass for 15-16 years old. Where is the manager? I don't know. How long have you worked here? I don't. Now I'm trying not to be seen and laughing. Call me a bad parent, but he's smiling and in no danger. Little Karen has the speak to the manager haircut and giant oversized purse. Karen, why didn't you say so? You just started talking to me. I didn't want to be rude, but I got cut off. Employee, can I help you? Son, please. She gets cut off again. Karen starts complaining. Son sees me laughing. He starts laughing, realizing what happened. Employee saw me and him laughing and immediately figured it out. Karen looks more angry. I have to imagine this is normal for Target. Poor Target employee. Son explained it to the wife when we stopped giggling. First post here, be nice. Just saw the sub and haven't stopped laughing. I wanted to add in some. Also, my 12-year-old is not on social media mostly by choice, but also because of toxic people. He has National Football League dreams and watches people get in trouble for 10-year-old tweets. He decided he doesn't need it. He plays a lot of Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, and deals with enough toxic people there. Story 6. So, living in an area with little options for department stores leads to seeing the same customers frequently in and out of work. I work for a well-known company that has a very specific uniform, think printed, branded scarves around the neck kind of specific. A couple of days ago, having spent enough time encountering the joys of panic buyers and stockpilers, I left the store on my break to go pick up a few items at another department store next door. Now this store doesn't have a uniform per se, just the clothes from the section that employee is working in plus a colored name badge for clarification. I very much do not look like I work there, at all, especially with the mask I'm wearing with my work logo clearly written on the side. I picked up something from a table but decided against it and went to fold it before I put it back in the pile because trust me, I know how awful tables can get. Every little helps. I got a tap on the shoulder followed by the telltale clearing of a throat, which I didn't appreciate given the circumstances, so I turned around naturally assuming I was in the way. We shall call him disgruntled customer DC. Quick apology letter. I turned to move on as my break was due to be over pretty soon. Then another throat clearing, and I'm paraphrasing here. Disgruntled customer. I do not appreciate you ignoring me. Me. Oh sorry, I just assumed you were trying to get past. You assumed wrong. Now, help me find X product in X size since there isn't any out. You must go to the back and find some now. Once again, sorry, but I don't work here, but I'm sure there will be someone nearby that can help. Once more, I try to leave, knowing I need to get back to where I actually work. Customer, where do you think you're going? How dare you lie to me? I know you work here because you've served me before. Now hurry to the back, or I'll call a manager for your incompetence and rudeness. Really, I don't work here. Although I may have served you at my workplace, which to reiterate isn't here, I really can't help you. You work here. Stop lying to me and do your job. You young people these days don't understand customer service. I demand you help me this instant. At this point, I really had to leave, so I quickly waved to an employee that actually worked there over to deal with this disgruntled customer as I hurried back to work to make sure I was back in time for my break. I didn't get a chance to buy anything I was planning on buying, but I did leave this customer sputtering in rage and a pretty notable shade of red little wins, I suppose. Story 7. I was in the Army for a few years. In my winter training, there were some Coast Guard officers up there. It was a few second lieutenants. If you are in the military, you know them. But this is a story. It was up in Maine. It was super cold up there, but I was going for a run. A Coast Guard officer grabbed me and pulled me into a building. I had a United States Army hat and sweats on. This second lieutenant started to yell at me that I was in the Coast Guard. I tried to explain, but I was yelled at for talking back. I had to work with them all day until 1 o'clock. My drill sergeant asked me what I was doing. I told her the story, and my sergeant would have been rolling around the ground, but there was about 4 inches of snow. I was told to go. She told me that I should go with the rest of the squad. Apparently, we were going to have a tactical snowball fight. I missed it because of some misinformed Coast Guard officers. I wished I didn't miss it. Luckily, my sergeant was actually nice, unlike the stereotype. She let me have a small break the next day. I heard that the major at the camp reprimanded the officer. I had an interesting time up there. But the snowball fight with some soldiers is awesome.